Minions, my Circadian counsel for you today is this. Let's talk about general physical preparedness versus specific physical preparedness. For any athlete, it is imperative that you prepare yourself generally before you prepare yourself specifically. What that means is when you begin a sport or begin an endeavor, you have to build a solid strength and conditioning foundation before you start doing sport-specific work. There's no point in doing sport-specific work if you aren't generally prepared. So what you need to do is increase your limit strength, your absolute limit strength, how strong you possibly are, both in grinding and power movements. You have to increase your anaerobic and aerobic capacity. Once you have that solid general physical preparedness, then you can start to specialize, right? It's the same thing. You get your bachelor's degree before you get your master's, before your doctorate. So you get your general physical preparedness, your base, before you start to specialize in any sort of sport activity. Now remember, why specialize your conditioning when you're going to be getting conditioning from the sport itself? It's another thing to think of. So, for example, as a jiu-jitsu practitioner, you get a hell of amount of conditioning from rolling around with opponents, and you get your specific conditioning at practice. So spend your strength training time doing that, training strength. That's the difference between general and specific preparedness. Let's talk a little bit about strength training or training in general and practice. For some reason, people fall into this trap believing that they have to make their training as similar to their practice as possible, and that's silly. Practice is practice and training is training. Training is in a controlled environment. Training is a time to get better at something, to build your general physical preparedness. Practice is a time to build your specific preparedness, to practice your sport. So, training, being in a controlled environment, should not mimic practice. Practice is typically football practice, for example. That's not in a controlled environment as much as doing a set of heavy back squats is. All right, training, general physical preparedness. Practice, specific physical preparedness. Let's not confuse the two. Keep them separate. Make them both productive.